I'm David Lombardo, and this is WCNY's The Capitol Press Room. In the final days of the legislative session at the Capitol, state lawmakers, in a near unanimous vote, approved a measure designed to ensure social workers who are deployed out into a person's home have panic buttons that can request immediate assistance from local public safety officials. For more on the legislation and the issues it addresses, we're joined remotely by Sharon McLennon Wier, Executive Director of the Center for Independence of the Disabled New York, which serves as an advocate for people with disabilities in New York City. Well, I guess for starters, I'm curious, what is it about this legislation and the populations that it addresses that made it something that your organization cared about?
Well, Sydney represents people with disabilities living throughout the five boroughs of New York City. But as an independent living center, we are a grassroots organization that's part of many independent living centers in the state of New York. And what that means is that we provide services as well as advocacy initiatives to help people with disabilities live as independent as possible within the community. So we want to ensure that when clinicians, workers, direct care, case managers, anyone that is serving people with disabilities in the community, we want to make sure that they're safe and they have the resources so that they can appropriately execute the needs of people with disabilities. As a mental health clinician myself and a person that has a PhD in counseling psychology, is important for me to also ensure that my staff, when they are going out in the community, be safe as possible, but also have the tools that's needed for them to perform to their best abilities in the home when working with clients. We recognize that we work with people that have all different types of disabilities. They may be at different levels of functioning, and they may be at times where they're having a crisis. And sometimes the crisis may be a mental health episode. And during those situations, our clinicians need to be able to appropriately address the crisis in a very de-escalating way, in a very trauma-informed care way, in a very empathic way. But at the same time, the clinician, knowing that they will have resources just in case something happens, could also help them in working effectively.
So it's interesting to hear you talk about the types of workers that would be impacted by this because
Hmm.
from reading the bill itself, it references these people who are social services employees, and the
Hmm.
assembly debate focused on, for example, people who work for child protective services.
Hmm.
But it sounds
Hmm.
like it has a much broader definition than just sort
Hmm.
of those people that might be doing, say, an inspection related to child custody issues, for example.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I mean the branch umbrella of social service personnel can be many individuals. Um, You could have people that do in-home services, like a psychologist, like speech pathologists, like occupational therapists, physical therapists. You could have applied behavioral analysis. You could have social workers, mental health counselors. There's direct care workers. There's many people that do in-home services. So for them to have some way of keeping safe, it's a great situation. Here at Sydney, we have installed in our home office in Manhattan, in our privacy rooms, panic buttons as well, so that when a staff member is working with a client, they also can feel that they can execute the work professionally. But if something happens, they will have staff members will be, notified, and we'll come running to assist. I think having that that sense of security helps you continue to do the work, and also be mindful that not every client is going to be in the best mental space, depending on the
Sure.
situation.
Well, under the legislation, a panic button can mean a physical device or, say, a
Hmm.
virtual button that could be activated
Hmm.
like on a smartphone. Do you have a
Hmm.
sense of what is the best way or most effective way to go about doing something like this? Because I could imagine, in, say, in a high stress situation, maybe
Hmm.
it would be difficult to call something up on your phone as opposed to pushing a button that you've got or on something around your neck or in your pocket.
Hmm. Well, I think a lot of it is has to be training prior.
Mm,
There are devices, just like for our senior population or anyone that has high risk medical
sure.
situations, like a medical alert. They can be a bracelet, it can be a necklace, it could be a key fob. Um, it also can be on the phone where the app is open, especially if you're doing the training for a clinician going into the home. There's certain things you do. You sit in a certain place in the house near the exit, near the door. You don't put your back to the client. You're always facing the client. You look to see who's in the room, who's at the home. You look to see what could be used as a weapon. So in doing that kind of a risk assessment prior to going into the home, one of the things would be, okay, make sure that you have your app open if that's the method. Make sure you have the key fob if that's the method. So it really doesn't matter. It's just part of the training process for any worker going into the home.
Well, before we move on, let me reintroduce you for listeners just joining us. This is WCNY's The Capitol
Hmm.
Press Room, and I'm David Lombardo, and we're speaking with Sharon McLennon Wier, Executive Director of the Center for Independence of the Disabled, New York. So the final
Hmm.
version of this bill covers
Hmm.
interactions in a person's home, but it initially
Hmm.
was more expansive, covering medical facilities, school, childcare
Hmm.
centers, community centers, and really other locations where services are provided. Do you think
hmm
the narrower focus makes sense, or do you think it would be beneficial to have the broader language?
Um, I think working in human service right now, if you are executive director, CEO, running a nonprofit, and you want to think about making sure that your staff is safe, if you can somehow figure out funding, because it's always about money, right? It could be capital upgrade, it could be a write-off in a sense of operations, having some sort of safety protocol in your organization is critical, and also having that for working directly with clients is important. It can be based on how you set the office up, where does your staff see the clients? Do you have one given space? Here at Sydney, we have privacy rooms. They're positioned in a certain way where other staff can easily assist. Staff here do not see consumers in their office space or their cubicle area. They have to see the client within this general area where there could be a better response. So that's something as a CEO that you can do in the sense of thinking about your space and how to keep your staff safe. Again, it's all imperative of funding, but regardless of that, I think we do what we can do based on the space that we have. If you have staff that are going out into the community, part of that is mobile devices. Here at Sydney, we equipped everyone with iPhone, and they have, their locations tracked because we want to make sure that they're okay. Any type of emergency, the director of the program needs to know where they are, because we have a lot of staff that goes into nursing homes, they go into consumers' homes, so we need to make sure that people are safe. And these days, when taking public transportation, we just live in a different climate these days. You have to be aware where people are. I don't know how else to say it.
I have to imagine there are some situations that social workers are going into where they know
Hmm.
there is already maybe a higher
Hmm.
risk or they're already going in on
Hmm.
alert. So, does this bill and the idea of requiring a panic button go far enough for those situations? Should there be other requirements, whether it's ensuring that you go in with another social worker or maybe
Hmm.
even
Hmm.
a public safety officer? Is that something that is already required, or should that be where the legislature should be looking if they really want to keep people safe while they're doing this sort of delicate work?
That's going to be hard to answer in the sense that it has to be a case by case basis. Each agency has its level of risk capacity that they need to evaluate. So to say that every single worker that's interfacing in the community needs to have additional supports
Well, maybe just in those high
it may be
risk
extreme.
situations, just in
Yeah.
those ones where they know, hey, we've had an issue with this person in the past, or
hmm
we know whatever we're going in to do today might not be greeted that well, so it might make sense to bring with another social worker or even a security guard or law enforcement.
I think for, it depending on the previous incident that has
Hmm.
happened, for a situation that is deemed high risk, then absolutely, supervisor and the worker can have visits because some of these contracts require to actually have eyes on the ground, like actually looking inside the home, to see what's happening. It's better to have preventative care rather than dealing with something afterwards.
Well, finally, with the time we have left,
Mhm.
I have one easy softball for you. It's all good
Okay.
for the legislature to pass along these sort of security mandates, but in terms of helping nonprofits
Mm,
operate and make it through New
mm.
York, is there anything else that you'd like to see them do? Whether it's timely contracting, timely payment, maybe
Oh my
colas,
goodness.
anything that
Uh-huh.
you'd look for them to do if they're really
Uh-huh.
trying to be helpful in the future?
Great. So I'm Dr. Sharon McLennon Wier, so just so you know who I am, and I'm here to tell you that it is important that we have timely payment. The Center for Independence of the Disabled in New York City, we have struggled over the last year and a half in dealing with payments. It's to the point now that it's dire. We served over 75,000 New Yorkers with disabilities last year. And because of all the systemic needs, we are on track to surpass that. It is really hard to operate a $12 million organization where you have agencies, are 6 to 9, even a year behind in payment. That is insane. Every 2 weeks, I'm stressing to see if I can make payroll. It's critical that we have timely payments. Now, the other piece is the actual cost of living. I know you're in the capital region, but here in New York City, things are so, so, so expensive. And some of my staff have not gotten an increase, a true increase, based on what the grant is increasing us for operation in years. We try to give bonuses or increases based on donations, but all of that it's hard because people are not donating the way they used to. Okay. So a COLA, what are we talking about? 2, 3, 4%? It's so critical because inflation is so high. People can't buy groceries, rent, all these other expenses. So just like any industry, if you go into finance, if you go into any other industry, the expectation is that you're going to get an increase. However, here in human service, the expectation is that you just do without and continue to serve. That's a bit unfair. You have people that have master's degrees, they have doctoral degrees, law degrees, and they're making peanuts. We do it because we care about individuals, but we also have to make a living here in New York City. And the nonprofits are driving the social service industry backbone of New York City. So we can't continue to go out of business.
Well, on that note, we've been speaking with Sharon McLennon Wier. She's the executive director of the Center for Independence of the Disabled, New York. Doctor, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to today's edition of the Capitol Press Room. For an insider take on what's happening in state government, check out our Dispatches from Planet Albany show, available wherever you get podcasts or at capitolpressroom.org.
Join us again for Capitol Press Room, a production of WCNY Connected, Syracuse.